Oh wait,
Because
that's why. All right.
am I
so
alive? Should we redo it? Should we redo? I can act it. We can reenact it.
how do we start? Okay. So
You want me to start?
creative director's mistake. I forgot to turn on our guest mic. This is definitely going to go in the episode that I messed up. So we're going to start over. So guys, welcome to Good Game Do Us Part podcast. This is Troy. I'm back again with Henry.
What's up? I
And
don't
we-
fuck up the intro.
All right, judge me. And then we're here with a special guest.
Robley. You may know me as Leonyx on the internet. I feel like this is deja vu going on right now.
It kind of is. It's like I just messed up and we had to re-record.
Yeah.
But guys, yes, Rob is the owner of Pittsburgh Knights organization, esports organization. If you haven't heard of that, I'm redoing this part again. One of my favorite PUBG esports orgs. So what was your thought process when you picked up a European team for like a European PUBG team at being an American org?
Well, I get that a lot. Just in general, our philosophies of picking up teams has always been where is that esport dominant in terms of region, right? You'll see, European region being really good at the FPS shooters. So we wanted to take that philosophy and adopt that. So a good example of this is Team Liquid having a European team, right? Or FaZe Clan, but they're American organizations, right? It just so happens that we have Pittsburgh in the name. For geological reasons, we stand very strong on the marketing end just by having a city name attached to ours. So we're really closely tied to localization. But for us, why we have a European team? To be honest, at the beginning, since there was no leagues ever set up, we were just going to say, hey, we're going to go pick the best team, make it up, and just so happens to be 3 of the 4 were Europeans. And we wanted to actually move them to NA. And then when the Pro League came out, they were like, nope.
Oh, yeah.
You need 3 of the residential. So we wanted to be actually part of NPL for the longest time. But we're part of PEL because of said rules. And I'm not that type of person to just drop kids and get rid of their futures because stupid things like that.
Yeah.
But we're fully committed to our players, and that we're with them for a long time. Voxic and Drayden have been with us ever the inception, since the inception of the org. Mm-hmm. So they're locked in for us.
So with Voxic being from the States and him going over to Europe, I know it's probably unlikely, but did he have any type of visa issues, like how we normally see with other players who are coming from other countries to the U.S. that have visa issues? Did he have anything with issues with that?
So we're very fortunate that PEL's first season or first split is only 3 weeks long, so he can still operate on a tourist visa essentially. That's still in the process for him specifically because we're trying to figure out what we want to do going forward with the PUBG team. For our Smite and Paladins. Paladins is all from the U.S., so we didn't have to worry about that. Okay. But Smite, we had to get everyone with their visas because they're all European. They all moved to Atlanta. But the reason why a lot of these things were delayed is because of the government shutdown. Oh. So the visas had been pushed back. Right. SPL, PEL, all these leagues are starting way late into the season because they wanted to give times to the organizations to get visas for their players. Originally, most of these leagues were supposed to start in January, including PEL, including SPL and Paladins Pro League, and I'm sure there's other leagues that were affected by this too. So they couldn't even do anything when your own government just shuts it down entirely. You don't have a lot of
you don't have a lot of
leeway
to do anything.
Yeah, you don't have it. You don't have there's no power, but that's what we had to deal with.
Right.
I didn't ask. How is your PAX East thus far? This is technically the 3rd day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So everything's been really good. I mean, this is my 3rd or 4th PAX. Pretty familiar with everyone. My main whole thing of going to PAX is meet old friends and also make new ones. But everything's
I
been.
thought he was gonna say party.
Yeah. Oh yeah, party. I'm not. Believe it or not, I'm not that big of a partier. I just end up at them because someone drags me along.
That happened last night with us. We just randomly ended up at the Facebook party, and then we ended up at the Predator party. We just kept ending up places, and we're like, so when are we gonna go home, guys?
Yeah.
Everybody hungry?
I keep asking. I'm like, hey, like, can I go home? They're like, no, stay with us. I'm like, no, please let me leave.
I remember at the Facebook party, at like an hour before, they were like, I went up to get a drink, and they were like, either water or soda. I'm like, oh, that means we're over here, right? That means we can wrap it up, right, guys?
Exactly.
Nope, we're still here.
It's funny because we weren't even supposed to be at that. Well, I won't say we're not supposed to be, but like we only ended up going to the Facebook party because like there was like no music at the Acer party, and they were playing Rocket League on the stage, which I still don't understand. They had 4 FPS players versus regular like people in the crowd playing Rocket League, and I'm like, what? Like, are you guys just trying to give away free swag? Like,
Yeah.
at this point?
I mean, you
Like,
know what?
I heard Jumpman was hosting that, right?
yeah, he
Yeah.
was.
Okay.
He did a great job, but the only thing was like you couldn't hear music because they were playing Rocket League, and then between it they were just playing dubstep, and it's like, all right, like I really just want to dance and like enjoy the music, and I can't.
So there was a super secret PUBG party. That's where I was at.
He just
during
got
this time.
really defeated just
Just
now.
so you know, that there was a super secret. Well, I was really upset because I didn't even know about it, and then I talked to Prim, and Prim was like, yeah, like talk to Sly, and I only got 1 ticket. There was no +1. It was really shady because it wasn't like shady as in like bad, but like shady as in like we didn't know what was going on. Got this RSVP. I was like, yeah, like people could come. And then we go. It's like it's a very like intimate, like small thing. But apparently they wanted a lot more people to be involved to make it look more exclusive, I guess.
Damn.
But
You're so mad right now.
I love PUBG, man. I'm sorry.
yeah, no. So it was a PUBG party, and apparently they were like mad that not a lot of people came, and everyone planned their parties on this day because they knew that Twitch wasn't going to be here. So they were like, oh, we're going to throw this massive PUBG party. But the way they did it was so exclusive that you couldn't even get a ticket. So it kind of like backfired. They made it so exclusive that
Nobody came.
not that nobody came, just like minimal people came.
I need more connections in the PUBG
It should have been just
realm.
public, to be honest. It was really fun. The food was amazing.
So
It was a good place to sit down and eat dinner.
All right, so anytime I'm at
They
an
had
event,
steak, infinite steak. Just so
I'm
you know.
looking for Rob, and I'm being like, yo, where's the PUBG
Give me
party?
that PUBG money.
Just let me get a ticket.
Just randomly be like, hey, how's the steak here? Is it good? Can I come? Should I come through? What's up?
All right, so I've been kind of dominating the beginning of this. Henry, do you have any questions?
I
thus
do
far?
actually. I actually have some. Since you know, so you're very involved in like the esports world, rather. So how do you feel about the state of it as like right now? Do you? Because a lot of times we make this, and we've said it before on a previous podcast. We had Shadosa from formerly of Splice Gaming, and now just kind of doing his own thing. And we got into the topic of like, is esports right now a bubble? Like, is it growing? Is it going to pop, or is it like just progressively on the rise and it's just going to level off? Okay. Is there going to be like a fall at some point?
Yeah, so I was, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely a firm believer of the bubble.
Right.
But you have to understand esports is so fragmented in different ecosystems that only each ecosystem will be a bubble, right? There's going to be a couple that pop, but as a whole, no. Just because the generation gap had been changing, right? Everything's going to be... It's like Marvel releasing a new movie and it shatters its previous record just because more population wants to,
Be a
view
part
it,
of that,
right?
yeah.
Be a part of it. So esports as a whole, no. Esports for individual like ecosystems, possibly, right? We don't know where Overwatch League is going to be in a couple years. People dumped a lot of money into it. We don't know where League of Legends is going to be. We don't even know where PUBG is going to be, right? Especially with new battle royales that come out that take up the market. But it's still standing strong, right? Because PUBG is the Fortnite for China.
Right.
It's massive, and PUBG Mobile is like super massive too.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of money. But yeah, do I believe in the bubble? Yes, but in fragments, yes.
That's actually a really interesting way to put it.
Yeah, I think each one will grow in its own way. Like for instance, even though that like, I'll be real. I love high res. Like Smite and Paladins, not the biggest games, but they're the most sustainable out of like all of them, most of them. And then I see platforms growing, right? Like at GDC, they announced Stadia. What does that mean for us? Mixer, Facebook Gaming, all dumping a whole bunch of money into like the big five are trying to get media rights because they're the new television stations.
Yeah.
They're dumping into they're dumping money into this.
To me,
try to
it's
get
like,
it.
I think it's like the idea of like throwing all these things at a dartboard and just hoping that something sticks eventually. That's how I feel it is right now.
Well, I mean, like if you want to look down from top down, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the media rights and how tech is evolving now these days. They always ask me, like, oh, should we get like media rights from YouTube? Should we get media rights from Facebook or Mixer? Well, it doesn't matter because each one of those platforms are going to be stronger in different ways, right?
Yeah.
So when they ask me, oh, who's going to win in the media rights war, right? Like Twitch is obviously super big right now. They're partnered with Amazon. That's one of the big five. But here's the thing. If Facebook Gaming decides to like keep going down the road, their user database is the biggest user database out of everyone so far. So they're going to tailor to very broad and casual gamers, right? YouTube, they have that the YouTube generation following, right? So it just really depends on who they want to target and market their strategy to.
Do you think that has any effect on the people who are trying to push esports and gaming to like the forefront of television, or do you feel like that's reaching to the past and it's kind of like pointless and like we need to only focus on the media rights for like tech-based stuff like on the internet, or do you think it has a purpose like chasing like television?
I think television will always be around as long as the older generations are around, to be honest. Do I think television's dead? Not entirely. Is it declining? Yes. Do you pay for cable? I sure hell don't.
Nope.
I got an Amazon Fire Stick.
Yeah. So that's a conversation that I always have with a lot of conservative people, and I'm like, I don't pay for television. I pay the $8 a month to Netflix. I torrent most of my shit, right? Like,
I mean, it's the idea of, do you have a home phone?
yeah, exactly, right. We absorb content in different ways. It might not be the highest quality. I remember there was like an interview with James Cameron and how he was upset that going to the movies is an event. Mm-hmm. It's everyone's watching on these like small screens and whatnot, and they don't get the real theatrical view of it. Yeah. But our generation just grew up absorbing content differently than an older generation. Because going to the movies is an event.
So, let's get into a little bit of your history.
Sure.
What was the first video game that you ever laid your hands on, if you can remember?
Oh, yeah. So my first video game ever was with my older brother. He used to live in a trailer park. It's crazy. Was on the PlayStation 1. It was Croc.
Oh.
Croc.
Okay.
It was not Mario, but Croc. It was a little, crocodile running around on a PlayStation 1. That was the first thing. And then I would always have nightmares because my brother, after playing Croc, he'd be like, "Oh, time's up. Resident Evil, let's go."
Oh my God,
I was terrified as a child. I'm scarred, but now I love zombies, so we're good.
Oh yeah.
It's fine.
You played Resident Evil 2, the remake?
I haven't yet.
Really?
I want to. That's actually the game that he was playing, because we would always joke around and run around like the house with your arm on your shoulder and be like, "Is Leon gonna be okay?" But that's what we did when growing up.
So follow up to that. What was the first game that you ever were like, more so like competitive? Not competitive, but rather what did you like that gave you that sense of competition? What was like the first game?
So I'm from Pittsburgh.
Right.
If anyone knows anything about Pittsburgh, we love our sports. I'd say gaming was an enhancement to my competitive mindset because I just grew up around sports, football, baseball, hockey, and just really was into just competition, right? Grew up playing all those sports, and then one day, freshman year, I joined the football team, and I got laid the fuck out. So I was like, "Hey, yep, not doing this again," because like I'm a small dude. Like I'm not. I didn't hit my growth spurt until like I don't know, senior year of college. No, I'm just kidding. but till late. So everyone's like super big. I think I still have a concussion from that time. Yeah, once that happened, I stopped, discovered some Halo. Halo was my jam back in the day. That was the original thing that really pushed me to like, I just took everything that I knew about competition and just infused it into gaming. And that the only thing at the time was console gaming for, you know, us young folk back in the day. So once the Xbox Live was on, I popped that baby on. That was my form of competition every day after school, after I got laid the fuck out.
Very. You still follow regular sports nowadays, or like?
Yes,
like,
actually,
okay.
I it's like I have to.
Are you a
now.
Steelers fan?
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
totally.
Dude, the org is like
kidding.
partnered and signed with.
I'm from New
like,
York, so it's like I'm a very big Giants fan.
It's all good. So 2 months ago, or no, 3.5 months ago, the Pittsburgh Steelers invested into our esports team. So that was officially recognized. There's a lot of quiet money too that's a part of it. But we're going to probably announce a couple like really big partnerships in the next couple months. That's.
Can I guess what one of those are?
Ooh.
It's gonna
You're
be.
you're allowed to guess.
I'm gonna guess that it's gonna be a Pittsburgh Knights Madden team, and they're gonna play in Snoop Dogg's Gangster Gaming League.
That is.
I mean, I think
my speculation.
That one's obvious. So I think right now we're really close with Snoop, just because you know, his homeboy's from Pittsburgh as well.
Yeah.
You can figure that who that is. But we're in the middle of signing Deliverance. He is the back-to-back championship winner for the Madden Club, like the Steelers Madden Club Championship, which is the Madden player that they send to their championships. So he's won 18 and 19 for this year.
Okay.
So he'll be joining the Knights.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's actually really dope.
So
What do you feel like gets more traction nowadays? Do you feel like more so like the otherworldly like Overwatch type games, League, PUBG, stuff like that, or like do you feel like your video games that are more grounded in like sports, like Madden, NBA 2K, and stuff like that? What do you feel like gets more traction nowadays?
Okay, I get a lot of that because when I talk to people on planes, they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "I'm in esports." Like, "Oh, you mean EA Sports?" No, that's not a thing. I get that all the time. I have no idea why that's the thing, but that's the thing that they're attached to. When you talk about regular sports, I'm an elitist. I do respect regular sports when they're converted into video games like the Maddens, the NBA, 2K, whatever. But honestly, for me, I would think I'm part of the demographic in some form or fashion. If I wanted to watch those things, I would just watch real sports. Like I'll just watch it on TV. I'll subscribe to ESPN. I'll get, I'll watch that. But for when it's video games, I want to fucking watch people shoot each other. I want to watch people, throw fire and ice at each other. I want to be stuck in Fantasyland. I do not want to watch someone. You know what I mean? So,
if I want to see someone do a shotgun play, I
exactly.
can go watch it on whatever.
It's business. It's violence, but controlled. It's safe.
Yeah.
You know what? That's what I like. And that's what most people like. They want to experience that stuff without actually. I'm not gonna go. Do all that. I can't throw fire and ice at someone at PAX East. Okay.
I'll get arrested.
I mean, exactly. You throw an ice cube or try to. That's terrible. But for me, that's part of the fantasy element. Two, you have to also look at video games in their own genre. They always ask me like, what happens when the next sequel of a video game comes out, and like the Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 3, Call of Duty 4. I'm like, no, you can't look at esports that way. You have to look at it in their specific genres. Who are the kings of their genre, right?
Yeah.
You could say, class-based shooters is top for Overwatch, right? Overwatch is the best class-based shooter, whatever. What's the best MOBA? Well, best on streaming numbers, like League of Legends, right? Best on prize pool, Dota. What's the best regular shooter? Call of Duty on consoles. Okay, there. PC shooters, CS:GO, right? So you don't look at it in games or titles. It's just the flavor of the month of that genre leading up to it. So that's what you like watching. I think, for instance, what really I always get the question also, what makes like an esport, right? Is it the viewership? Is it the game or how it's presented? So like here's a good thing that makes me, or not good thing, but here's what makes me skeptical of like let's say Overwatch League, right? The reason why I'm so skeptical of Overwatch League is because history in itself tells you what was Overwatch before Overwatch. It was Team Fortress 2. That was never like a huge competitive thing.
Right.
Like the competitive community for games sprout and make themselves because people would want to see it competitive. They want to see it high end. But that was never a thing for Team Fortress 2.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they just made another game like Team Fortress 2, but like with, like Pixar characters almost, right?
Yeah,
like
and
Disney
then forced
characters.
it into. Well, I want.
So
Would you? With that being said, not really to cut you off, but do you think that Blizzard kind of forced it into an esport, or that the people that it was marketed to kind of focused it in toward esports because it was what esports was being like showcased as?
I think because it was the biggest title, people wanted it to be an esport. Is a combination, and Activision Blizzard forced it to be an esport.
I think for me, my own personal is like my takeaway from that is I think Blizzard and like Activision saw like how well it was doing with like when they had like the Apex League and stuff like that in Korea, and finally they were like, why are we not getting in on this? And I feel like then that's when they really forced it into like this big conglomerate stuff. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy Overwatch League. I enjoy watching games and stuff like that. But I can definitely see that it's like definitely like been a forced thing into your.
It's forced because no one back then wanted it to be competitive. People only wanted to be competitive right then and there because Overwatch was the new shiny thing in the room at the time.
Right. Yeah.
So there's only three different pathways that game developers make their or run their esport, right? Because they hold the keys to the kingdom, their IP. No one owns the football in the NFL, right? Like the NFL runs it.
Yeah.
But no one owns the IP. Like you can still go outside and play football and even possibly even broadcast it, right? But not on TV. Weird. So it's either developer licenses it to third parties like ESL to like make their open circuits. That's why you get GLL and Star Ladder for PUBG when it was open circuit back in the day. Or they take control of their IP and they run their own esports, and that's an entire marketing arm. Very much like League of Legends and what they did. Now what PUBG is doing, right? With PEL and NPL, GLL is not doing it. Like they're not running any leagues for PUBG as long as it's like the one-off tournaments for the world stuff.
Yeah. They turned them into majors.
Yeah. So, or the third option is they do a combination of both of what they're doing right now. So yeah, like it just really depends on like how the community wants it to be an esport. If it was ever an esport in the first place, does it garner top level competition? Like for right now, I think the flavor of the month is Apex Legends. Everyone wants to know who the best like Apex Legends player is. That's why Dizzy like blew up, right?
Yeah. I mean, we got into this like I think our first episode where you were a little heated about Apex Legends, about it being the idea of it was how long was it out for 3 days or something like that?
It was like 3 or 4 days, and people were already. I get the point of people already looking to sign players, but it was just like it wasn't like it dropped like. I don't know. It was weird to me because it's like, all right, I understand, like, there's going to be people who want to play competitive, like, in almost every game. But it's like, the game has been out for 3 days, and you're already, like, saying, all right, let's sign people. People are already saying, like, oh, I'm pro in this. It's like, how can you be pro in something when you haven't competed? Mm-hmm. Like, and we don't know what the skill cap is. Like, look at Dizzy. Like, I don't think anyone, like, he kind of blew up overnight. Like, no one really knew who he was. Like, even if he was playing something before, he might not have been as great in it. Apex Legends comes out, and now he's considered the best in it. So it's like, what happens next month if he's not the best? But now he's already signed to NRG. But I don't know if he's signed as a streamer or not. But, like, say you sign all these players, and then, like, a month later, you realize, like, oh, the skill gap is way better. Now you have all these contracts that you kind of have to, like, get people out of or...
Yeah, it gets really confusing when there's not really a stabilized infrastructure for that particular game.
Yeah.
I think, you have to look at it from like NRG's perspective and those teams that do sign players. They're looking to take as much real estate as possible and hedge their bets that they would find a Dizzy. They would find like good players that are in the game and they would just instantly blow up. And that's what NRG did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say, I actually think it's a little bit of luck, to be honest. And then he was just in the right place, right time, in the right social circles, and he blew up, and he He's also good.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. There are good players out there, and but as an esport, right? Like he's still playing Code Red tournaments, right? He's still winning money. He's still claiming that he's the best player in the world, and that's all you really need to do, right? Most of the esports stuff is marketing dollars.
Yeah. So let's get back into a little bit of your history. You said when you fell in love with like gaming or sort of, it was around Halo. Did you ever compete on like game battles or anything for Halo or any like Call of Duty?
Of course, but you know, when you think you're hot shit, you actually play and you find out that you're not hot shit. The closest thing I've ever had in competitive, like level was not even Halo. Was never like amazing at Halo. It just started my drive for competition in video games. I mean, yeah, I'd like to say I would be the best one at my high school, but in the country, no way. But I was like read stuff in the magazines like IGN back in the day, and I mean Game Informer, like of all these other players and people like the ninjas of the world back then, like the Ogre 2s, right? T Squared.
Yeah.
Those are like guys I like looked up to like growing up. But the real competition was in League of Legends for me. Actually, the highest like level or rank that I've ever competed or not even got to in League was like Master Tier. Technically, I was a sub for an LCS team for a couple of them. Just never seen an actual competitive game. Fun fact, you could pick me in the fantasy LCS, but I would score you 0 points, just so you know.
Just being in that fantasy league is almost like an accomplishment.
Yeah,
like, yo, why didn't you pick me on your fantasy team?
That's
like,
a good point. How do you feel about fantasy leagues for esports?
Love it.
Really?
I love it. As long as it's a pro league or some form of league that's stabilized structure, like every weekly games.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
For
Like
funsies or for like real money?
What do you mean? What?
Would you want like a fun one, or just like you just do it with your friends, or like would you want to like something that was like
Oh, I would do
cold,
both, right?
Like cold hard cash, you trying to make a little bit of money here on the
Oh
side.
no! Oh no! Not like that, but yeah, I mean, like, of course, if my buddies on the side after work every day, we're like, okay, we're gonna like kick each other's ass in like fantasy like league. Yeah, of course. Would I want to be a part of like a fantasy Overwatch thing? Yeah, of course. Fantasy whatever. But a fantasy Apex Legends, not yet, right? And it has to be something stable where I can just be like, okay, this guy's gonna get these points, I'm gonna get this points. Everyone gets really upset when we're called nerds about this stuff, but like people that watch sports and keep track of that stuff are nerds themselves.
I mean, do you eventually see like those those online betting companies like I just blanked out on some names, but like
we don't need to give them shine. I don't support them.
Hey, they're not paying for the podcast.
They're not.
Yeah.
We pay them for our own money.
We'll keep it broad.
But do you ever see those kind of those companies like being like, hey, we want to like do our own fantasy Overwatch league? You invest like $100 or whatever money you want, and then you place bets like and stuff. Do you ever see that actually becoming reality?
I think depending on what the bigger leagues align themselves with, whoever they align themselves with the leagues, yeah. Right now in an open market, no. There's too many of them. There's too many of those. Not direct. There's no direct traffic to them, or they're focusing on like cryptocurrency or all that stuff. What's really gonna like step in is if, let's say, well, I always use League of Legends as an example because it's like the most sustainable and not most sustainable, but most consistent esport. Right, like if they wanted to partner with like what's it called, the betting thing, the William what is it called, the one of the casinos or something like that.
I just thought of one like DraftKings.
Yeah, like DraftKings. They used
That's what
to.
I was thinking of before.
Yeah, DraftKings. So if they wanted to partner with DraftKings, yeah, of course it's gonna work like that. But at the same time, right, like sports is seen as this upper echelon of adults after college, right? That they have beer sponsors, they have alcohol sponsors, they have all this stuff, right? But what's wrong about video games is because it's such a gray area and there's no real crackdown on what is there to, is video games for kids? What is video games for adults? Is esports for adults? Is esports for kids? So most of these leagues, when I read their rule book or read us entering into the leagues, they have a restriction on gambling. They have a restriction on alcohol. They have a restriction on marijuana. I can never get those sponsors. I could never tap into that market and get those marketing dollars, especially when alcohol gives a lot of money.
Yeah.
They give a ton of money. Can you imagine if we were allowed to have tobacco sponsors? Every esport team would be profitable.
I mean, imagine a broadcast of online on something, and like you cut to a commercial for Bud Light. Imagine that. Do you imagine the revenue that like your
You get
like,
a
an
lot.
organization would be making?
You get a lot,
if
but
you could cut to like on like a Bud Light commercial, or like or even like if a jersey had like a symbol for a tobacco company or something like that.
yeah, it's deemed, you know, bad because you're marketing to kids, so they don't do it. They don't allow it. Game developers don't want to do it because there's no real clear direction of going through high school, college, and then growing up to most people that go to the NFL they completed college, right?
Yeah.
So there's no clear pathway for that in esports because there's so many ecosystems and so many different infrastructures that you're a part of. One of the funny story. So we were talking. Well, I was talking to you a long time ago with like a OG member of Twitch, and it's funny because one of the topics of conversation were like, there's one industry that they wanted to tap into, but they didn't know how without tainting the brand of Twitch. It's Pornhub, right?
Oh
like,
yeah, and YouPorn almost got into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like pornography trying to get into like esports. It's like how does that work? Or streaming. They already have that stuff, but like they wanted to tap into like mainstream culture of it. How does that work? That's like they were like, this is like a multi-billion-dollar thing. How do we make it work? Of course, like that's like a problem in itself. And I always in the back of my head, man, it's like, how would that work? How do I tap into those billions? How do I become Mark Cuban overnight?
How do I do it?
So I'm like sitting there, rocking in the corner, trying to figure out what the answer is, but you can't. It's
Just
hard.
sitting there like, I want to be the Zuckerberg of esports. How do I do it?
I'm going to attach myself to porn.
I've done it.
But no, I don't. But I don't even want to do that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Billions are nice.
You
know what's better than $1 billion? $1 trillion.
I thought you were going to say like a good moral compass.
No.
No. Trillions of dollars, actually.
So from being substituted in league, what was the transition from like, I guess being some type under a competitive player into like working in esports or just not being a player?
Yeah. So
and then growing from there.
Yeah. So I was never technically on paper, yeah, but like I was never a competitive player. I always managed teams, managed brands, built them up. For the longest time, worked for SK Gaming a long time ago. Did a little freelance work for like Team Liquid and all the other teams growing up through League of Legends and different games, specifically CSGO and Halo. So started Renegades, started Misfits, went over to work for Immortals, like my first VC company that I was like part of. But after that, I was just really tired because I was traveling around a lot, didn't know what I was doing, followed a girl back home, heart was broken. Went back home, didn't know what to do with myself.
I feel like that sometimes.
Yeah, right. So it's a generic story that everyone has at least fallen into.
Everyone's got that path at some point.
But yeah, so I was really tired of just growing these companies, and I see like all the guys are like making millions of dollars after they sell their company, right? So I'm like helping as an employee. I'm like, I was working as a salary job, so got tired of that, and I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna do it myself this time. I'm all in on it. So did that, went back home, got investment from some partners, well, not from some partners, from the Steelers. But before that, it was a blind shot in the dark because I wanted to prove a proof of concept, and that was with the PUBG team. I would like to say that we're really close with PUBG. I love the developers. Went to Korea, met with a whole bunch of guys over there. Their vision of the game is fantastic. I played PUBG even after Apex, and I still love it. So they must be doing something right. But yeah, like after that, I was just really tired of making other people a ton of money. That was the real crux of it. And then after that, it's not even that like. Most people can probably make a lot more money elsewhere.
Yeah.
But making money in the thing that you love, work's not work if you love it. So that's how I feel about the entire thing.
Right. So this might be a very broad question, but as someone who's worked, you've done this. You know, you got the heartbreak story. You came back, you built your own thing. You know, you get a lot of guys that are like in their early 20s and stuff who didn't cut it as a pro player or something, and they want to go on to do what you're doing now. Like, what is your big advice for them? Like,
can I add on to that before you answer
please,
it?
Yeah, go for it.
Outside of just being like a pro player who may not have made it, what about like a kid who, let's say, graduates high school but doesn't attend college, and it's just like, I know that I'm passionate about gaming and esports, but I don't know where to, like, I don't know how to break into this industry because it's so competitive right now.
Yeah, it's quite difficult. I'm not going to give you like a story like, oh yeah, you can totally do it. Okay, so I will
no
give
blueprint?
you
Oh, shit.
Honestly. So there's this story about this guy that goes to SpaceX with Elon Musk and meets him, and he goes and he's with a group of people, and they're trying to understand like how Elon Musk became Elon Musk, how do you work at SpaceX, or like all these like top upper echelon companies that, like, Elon Musk is like doing God's work, right?
Yeah.
But he gets there, he's hella passionate, extremely interested, and he finally meets Elon Musk, and then Elon Musk like walks into the room and says, none of you are going to be entrepreneurs, go home. Or something like that. It's not exactly as blunt, but something along the lines of that. And that's not a test to him being like true about it. It's a test to filtering out who the people want to keep going down the path.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's going to be highly competitive. How do you beat the other guy? I think I was watching this video of Hector from Optic, and he was like saying, yeah, you're allowed to take off, a day for work, right? You're if you want to work in esports, you're allowed to go home to see your family on Christmas. You're allowed to go do all these things. Go do it. But note that there's someone out there that's not going to go see their family, that is not going to take that day off of work and work while a bucket's next to their desk so they can puke in it. So that's who you have to beat. You have to beat, and it's taxing, it's grueling on your life. Like, for instance, my day, the only day that I set aside for any quality of life type things or self-care is Sunday. I work from 7 to 7 every day, including Saturdays. And then I go home, and then I try to do as much research for the following day. Right. So that's like the thing. PAX is my holiday right now.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm working.
Yeah, here you are.
yeah. But like, it as advice to them, you just do it. No, I'm just kidding. Advice to them, one, it might not even be esports. You might just like it as a hobby. You might just like it as, as a viewer, spectator. Make sure that you know what you want first. For a long time, I didn't even know what I wanted to do going out of high school. No one should be expected to know what they want to do at the age of 18.
Yeah.
Right? That making a decision to go to college and being $50,000 in debt should not be left up to an 18-year-old. None of us were prepared at that moment to make that decision, and some of us took that decision without knowing the repercussions of it.
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate for UBI, universal basic income stuff, and college for forgiveness stuff. But I'm hella conservative on the political end, so like, there's something wrong there. That's another discussion for a different time. That doesn't involve esports that I am really, really deep into. Believe it or not, I do follow politics a lot.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so the advice for that person, if you're going to do it, you're either all in or you're out. There's no gray area. It's black and white. Are you better than the next person? Are you better than this person? For some reason, esports is like Hollywood, and people tend to fail upwards. So as long as you're doing something, you're going to fail upwards. I don't know what it is. I've seen so many people that I do not think they're qualified, but apparently they are qualified.
I think that's what my issue with it is. I'm like, because my whole, so I'll be honest.
It's like Hollywood. You just fail upwards,
right
man. Like
there's a trigger
fucking what's his name? The guy that directed M. Night Shyamalan. He just keeps getting movies,
God.
dude. I don't know what it is.
He made Last Airbender, and it's like, this fucking sucks. He's never gonna work again. And then he made like
Exactly.
Split. He made Split, and everyone's like, oh, he's the best director again. It's like, what the fuck?
As long as you're doing something, apparently you're fine.
Someone's gonna give you money for something, apparently.
I mean, yeah.
that was like part of the reason why I wanted to do the podcast, because I wanted to have like genuine people who are passionate. Because I'm like, there's too much fuckery that's going on, and I don't understand how these people are successful. But then I'm like, there's a market for it. Like, God damn it! Like, just let me find the genuine people, and I want to have conversations with them.
I mean, it's the same idea. I mean, outside of this world, I'm an emergency room nurse. It's the same token where it's like you see people who are like, how are you doing this job?
Yeah.
Like, how are you allowed to save lives or try to and fail? And it's like, I don't know, the money's good, and it's like, okay, here we are. It's almost the same way. It's like, well, I do this because okay, the money's good, and I don't know. But there are, and it's the same way. Is that in esports there are genuinely like passionate people, and sometimes you just have to weed past the bullshit and be like, and that's what this is really the point of this podcast, is to find the genuinely passionate people about it and talk to them and get their stories.
So speaking of failures, we're gonna go to the more positive light and go to the actual positive side of things.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, what are your failures?
Oh yeah, let's get in that. As a esports owner, what are some of your biggest things where you look at it and maybe not, it may have been a lesson learned, but you were like, damn, I could have done that better, or like, that wasn't the way I planned. How do I get over this like hump?
I mean, I think there's a lot of failures in it that I've run into over the years. I mean, like, esports is so small. It's you have to. It's so tight knit that everyone kind of like knows each other in some form or fashion. So you have to be extremely like PC. You have to be just, for some reason, politically correct. You just got to be PC, and even being PC, everyone looks at you as being PC and they hate you for it. So the failure is caring what other people think. Just keep doing your thing. Go out there, slay it, and let the accomplishments speak for themselves. Because a lot of people, like, because I hate to say it, but most of the esports communities are very incestuous. That's the truth of it. Like, I wasn't kidding that esports was like Hollywood, because people talk. And because we grew up in a gaming environment, we grew up without knowledge or people watching over us to tell us what was wrong and what's right. And a lot of the people in the industry are toxic as fuck. Everyone grew up telling everyone to go have sex with their moms, right? Like,
telling somebody like you're a piece of shit is like very casual.
Exactly. People are growing out of that now, but the stigmatism is still there because of where we all grew up from, because we were kids back in the day. Right? I mean, most of these esports teams were made by kids. FaceTime was made literally by kids that were doing 360 no scopes on YouTube.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, like, you look at like not to bring up Overwatch League, but you see like all these random controversies that come out for Overwatch League for their players and stuff who have these very crazy, I'm not going to mention the actual scandals, but I'm sure you've heard of them and stuff like that. And it's the idea of also like, it's like having these 18, 20, 19-year-old kids being caught up in these scandals. It's like, well, how did they get involved in those scandals? Well, there was nobody around being like, hey, you shouldn't do that.
Exactly.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, he did it. Like, there was nobody there to do that.
And it happens. I mean, like, that's the world we live in. I do wish there was some form of government interjection into esports. I mean, the only thing that the government has really done for esports is allowing video game players to be recognized professional athletes, right? There's no real lockdown of, boom, this is what it is. You got to be 21 to participate in any competitive video gaming environment. There's none of that, right? In traditional sports, there is. There is something that says, go finish college. You got to be this age. You have to have basic necessities and knowledge of life before you enter into something that, you may only have 3 years as like a running back, right? There's none of that in esports, and it's unmonitored, and people don't know how to grow up in today's world because it's progressing so fast. There's no right or wrong answer of like parenting now these days of that. And I'm not even saying just parents, it's just guidance. Because once you get to this age, you figure out that none of us know what the fuck we're doing. When we were little kids, we thought, the teenagers knew what they were doing. When we were teenagers, we thought we knew what, like, the high school kids were doing. And when we were high school kids, we thought the college kids knew what they were doing. And then when we were college kids, we thought that adults knew what they were doing. And then you realize none of us know what we're doing.
And here we are, like I'm 28 years old. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
Exactly.
But that's okay. I think that's also okay, a little bit. Not like having some control, but also being like, every day's a new day. It's a new chance for a new opportunity. Just don't be an asshole.
Yes.
Is that good advice?
But even if you try to protect yourself of being an asshole, you somehow turn out to be the asshole. So that's just the normal thing.
Like Logic. People hate Logic because he's positive, and it's like,
a lot of people hate Logic because they think like, oh, he's so positive stuff. That's definitely fake. He's fucking fake. And then it's like, maybe he is. I don't know. I'm not the one to judge Logic.
Look,
his music's pretty
I'm not
good,
gonna knock him
whatever.
for trying to put out a positive message. You'd be like, hey, be a good person. You know what? No, Logic. I'm gonna go be a shitty person. It's like,
Yeah.
okay then.
All right.
But on that note, I guess we can get into like one last question. Is what are your goals for your org, like in the future, now, in the future, and where would you like to see it when you're an old man and you're like, you know what, Knights, I've done what I've had to do. If you had to step away from it, where would you like to see your organization?
Well, right now, I'll tell you what the current thing is, and if I had to step away, I would like to see where it goes. For right now, I'm on the back end. A lot of people just hit me up about like being part of esports, doing this, doing that. I have kind of like filtered myself because before I've made myself so available to everyone.
Yeah.
Because I always wanted to be like super genuine and answer like every email, but that's impossible.
Yeah.
But every email and message. But that's impossible. Right now on the back end, I'm working on collecting all the Infinity Stones of esports.
We got Thanos on the fucking podcast.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
But outside looking in, I want to see my org succeed and create the staple and the pathway for localization for esports and the importance of that because everyone's fighting over the same market right now. If anyone is in the esports realm, they'd understand that, you know, the Cloud9s, the TSMs, the you know, Team Liquids of the world, they're all fighting over the same market, and it's heavily saturated. And the only way to really tap into something that's not there is the localization part, because there's so many businesses in cities that don't reach globally. Esports is global, yet it's distant from like hometown aura. Which what I mean by that is if you go to any other like just sports game in general, like traditional sports, the crowd is a little bit similar to esports crowds, but they're completely different. You know what I mean? So what I want to see is other teams follow suit of taking the localization route and connecting themselves with city, because there's a ton of sustainability and opportunities for that. I'd love to see a Cleveland team. I'd love to see a Baltimore team. I'd love to see everyone taking up that real estate for those, because that's in truth of it that's the 10-year answer down the road.
Yeah.
Right.
So you believe in franchising essentially, like it because it's something that works, it should be done, or you know, that's just like for sustainability, like that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I totally believe that. A good example of this is Highmark, a health insurance company that's only in Pittsburgh, will only deal with us because we're in Pittsburgh. Who else are you going to go to?
Yeah.
Who else is Highmark going to ever go to? A health insurance company. Name me one time a health insurance company has ever given a seven-figure contract to
You work in health,
team.
I don't, so you can answer that.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah, no.
Like,
no, never.
Exactly.
Never.
When are they ever going to partner with Cloud9? Cloud9 has no rights on that because they're not in Pittsburgh.
I didn't even know. That's amazing.
You know what I mean? Like there are markets.
You just piqued my interest. I'm like, what's up?
There are opportunities in localization that you just can't get with a regular team.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine like a New York-based team and them being like paired up with like Blue Cross Blue Shield. Blue Cross Blue Shield really only hits the New York tri-state area, and that would be amazing. Do you ever see it being like seeing like a 40-year-old dad in like a supermarket with like the faded esports team like shirt or something like that, like way down the road?
Down the road, yeah, maybe. But right now, I see an adult with, you know, we're in Boston. I use Boston as an example. I see a dad wearing his Patriot stuff, right? He's in the market at like Dick's Sporting Goods or something, right? Or wherever that you purchase sports gear, and he sees like a Boston Uprising shirt, and he'll get that because he wants his kid to like, that's the connection.
Yeah.
Right. That's where the kid's gonna love the Fortnites. That's his connection. That's how you bridge the gap between old generation and new generation of entertainment.
I will be the 40-year-old guy wearing a Pittsburgh Knights jersey that's faded.
It's gonna be the faded Pittsburgh
at
Knights
at a Wizards game, being like, yeah, I know I have the wrong jersey on, but
I'm
right
here. I'm
here.
here. I was here at the conception of this. But do you have any projects you want to shout out, or where can people follow you, your team, your org?
So everything is Knights.
Plug everything.
Everything is either Knights or Knights GG. We have Knights on Instagram. We ninja'd that. It was nice.
Did you pay someone, or it just was there?
No, it's just there. It's just there. We have it.
So we just opened up the office door. It's available.
It's available. No, we would never sell that asset. It's too much money. So you can follow everything on for my team, Knights, Pittsburgh Knights. We're based out of Pittsburgh. We're born and bred black and gold. And you'll be seeing a couple announcements in the next couple months that won't be bopping. No, I'm just kidding. But for me, you can find me either Leonyx everywhere on the internet, Leonyx, or I am Leonyx. So you'll be able to find me. It's easy. Everyone uses Google now these days. Yes. Or Bing.
Ew.
I had to drop that one because I'm really close with Microsoft.
Shout out to Microsoft.
Yeah,
See,
they're fantastic.
I had a good title for the podcast episode when he's like, "Oh, just slay it," and I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of dope." Then he's like, "I'm Thanos." I'm like, "Okay, I can work with that." And then he goes, "Bing," and I'm like, "Yikes!" Now I might have to name the episode Bing.
Hey, look, Bing scraping is actually way better than Google's. If you actually look at just hear me out.
Oh, this is the real topic of the podcast.
Because people are not educated and they don't use another product, Bing scraping software is actually superior. If you Google esports matches versus each other, like the esports teams on it, it'll show like the upcoming matches, right? And usually it'd only be like the League of Legends one for Google. But if you go and Google or Bing, I see the power of branding. If you go Bing, like esports teams or anything like that, it scrapes it better. Like it actually makes like all the schedules and whatnot for your like favorite esports teams and whatnot, because they've been actively working on it. I know that for a fact. Thank you, Tom, for bringing it.
Okay.
Exclusive.
It's actually a better platform for esports, believe it or not, because they've been actively working on it.
Intriguing.
Yeah.
And with that, guys, thank you so much as usual.
I had an ending that I've been working on, but
what do you got?
I kind of
You had a jingle.
sort of, but actually, this actually needs to be mentioned before we leave 100%, because we were very disappointed with the music at the parties.
He's so mad about this.
When are we gonna get a Wiz Khalifa Snoop Dogg Nights Festival?
That was good, actually.
Do you remember one of those like announcements? Like, later? We'll figure it out, but we'll figure it out.
Guess we're going to Pittsburgh soon.
All right, guys, and with that, until good game do us part, we're out of here.
Thank you. Thanks. Till next time, guys.